here for judging the film. She's also been here for the film class, and a couple weeks ago I was twisting her arm about saying something during this program too. From Willie's from Austria.
Thanks for your introduction. I'm actually a biologist, and I was trained by Konrad Lorenz, who was the only one who ever got an award for studying animal behavior. And I don't think anybody else will ever get it again. And he was a great person to popularize science as well. First of all, I want to make a statement about what Chuck always says, that films are a mirror of the natural world. I don't think that is true, because our own insight in the world is pretty much limited, considering there's many species which have a much better eyesight than we have. The ears are much better than ours. And many other features they're dealing with much better than we do. So our insight in nature is pretty much limited already. And then we start producing films about that. And what are we going to end up with? I think it's not a mirror. A mirror reflects a picture one-to-one, except that sound is missing, really. But what we are doing with filmmaking is rather kind of still photography. It's just a very limited picture we can make. And so, I think we are very much responsible what we put in this picture and what we actually show there. Chuck has mentioned I was a judge in this festival, and I've learned a lot about filmmaking there. I've also learned a lot in Jeffrey Boswell's course. And I think everybody who makes a film should attend Jeffrey's course first. A bit of advertising here for Jeffrey's course. I would like to talk a little bit about the language which is used in pictures. I would like to talk a bit about how scripts are made and about the do's and don'ts in there. Most of it I've learned in Jeffrey's course, or being a judge, obviously. I was not dealing very much with films before, although I'm a trained camera assistant. And I would like to talk a little bit about the information which is forwarded in these films. If a producer wants to produce a program primarily for the purpose of entertaining the audience, they always tend to think that what they need is to be comparing the animals with humans. They always like to be anthropomorphistic, to humanize animal behavior. It took me almost 2 hours talking to one of these producers and convince him that they don't need to do so. They can still be entertaining and amusing and not being anthropomorphistic. But finally he realized that he doesn't have to sacrifice his way of presenting his film to the audience, and he can still be scientifically correct. So there is some hope still. I think we have tended to kind of accept these things on the basis that all these producers don't know any better. When I was judging, I could hardly find any film which didn't have a couple of anthropomorphisms in it. And I started thinking, well, I have to live with this. There's always 4 or 5 statements in a film which are kind of not true at all. And I really started to feel it's not a matter of entertainment, but the audience really deserves to be told the truth. And anthropomorphistic statements are wrong. And because they impose human feelings, fears, dislikes and even social structure of human society to animals, which is not true. And these producers like to tell us animals are just like us. And I don't know what's wrong with saying they are not like us. They're different. They're very interesting. There's a lot to say about them. I don't know what all this idea is about. There's so much to say about all these species. And I've seen quite a couple of very bad examples. I don't know whether I'm supposed to mention them here. But there's also some very nice examples where people try to explain things by methods of making comparisons. And one of these films was Panama Wild. And one of the statements made there was, "Hi, organism, what are you making your living of? With whom do you interact?" This is a kind of comparison, and I find this very nice. So there's a kind of small line between anthropomorphism and kind of comparing. You can still do that. That works. Nothing wrong with it. And one film where I put down in my notes, I love this because it lacks anthropomorphisms, was Coast of Loneliness, made by the Bartletts. The other thing I was a bit concerned about is that many of these producers, or maybe it's rather the script writers or the scientists, apparently lack the basic education about topics of animal behavior. This science is a pretty young science. It has only been there for 40 or 50 years. But still, there's a lot of research going on there, and it doesn't seem to come through to many of these filmmakers or producers. And if you deal with an object, you need to know about it. I was a bit shocked by the lack of background of scientific facts in these films. And some of these facts you can find in textbooks for 10-year-old children nowadays. And some of these researchers didn't do their homework, obviously. I don't know. And I was also a bit puzzled how few research results, new results, were in these films. People might think research or scientific contents is a difficult thing to communicate, but that's not true. You can communicate any fact if you link it to something people already know. And a very good example for that is the Alien Empire. It's a series actually, but I would show that to my students because all the facts are very clear, they're very on a very high scientific level, but they still communicate with a normal audience, as I think. So the level of your scientific content is not really the problem. The problem is how you are able to communicate it, and this has to do with didactic skills. And I think many of these script writers lack a little bit of these didactic skills sometimes. There could be improvement made on that, I think. And producers might argue that you bore your audience if you keep throwing facts at them, which they don't want to know at all. But I think that's wrong, because people are interested in things. They want to know about it. And they don't want to know what they already know. I was amazed by the high level of kind of cliché or common knowledge being forwarded in all these scripts. Like, animals have to eat. If they don't eat, they starve. So what does it tell us? Nothing, really. And I think I started to analyze a little bit what text or script in film is for. and only a little percentage seems to deal with information, really. Some of it has to forward your storyline. And if the researcher is there, you have to explain what he does and whatsoever. That's okay. But some of it seems to be only there to enhance the pictures, which are pretty nice to start with. And you end up with words like a world of beauty, unlike any other we have seen in the world. A world of endless surprises. A pair of eyes lurking in the dark. But danger is everywhere. I mean, these words, they might give you some sort of tension, but there's really no information in that. And I want to deal now a little bit with the pictures. I've said something about scripts and text so far. And I think in many films, animals are used for artistic reasons rather than to show some facts of their lives. You have all seen the lion, beautifully lit, with backlight, but it could as well be an elephant, like in the opening of this film. And he's kind of walking from the left to the right. It's beautiful light, and nothing is really happening. We're not told anything about the species. It's just there because it looks beautiful. It's a foreground. The animal is a foreground for beautiful scenery, or it is used as a moving scenery. In many films nowadays, the storyline is very carefully designed. But I started to think about that a little bit, and it seems to me that in many cases the animals have to fulfill the storyline rather than the storyline follows the behavior or the life of these animals. Sometimes I think there's something wrong with it. Yesterday I was in a screening and saw Lions of the Kalahari, and it seemed to me there was this lioness walking from the left to the right, and they said, now she has decided to be on her own. And I thought, how do you know? It's kind of artificial design of storyline put on top of the animal, over it. And many pictures are shown, their only purpose is to keep the storyline going. But a very nice example where it has been done very, very nicely are these chimpanzees films from Hugo von Lawick and with Jane Goodall. There's a couple of them around. Fifi's Boys, for example. And there they managed really to fit, to kind of make the storyline the life of the animals. It's the other way around there. The other thing I'm a bit concerned about is how the images are used nowadays. There was a little bit of change in the last couple of or 20 years or so. Nowadays we get a kind of middle shot, and then people start throwing all these close-ups at us, and the sequence of behavior which is shown in the film is not a true sequence anymore. It's not one-to-one. Would be maybe pretty boring in many cases, but what we see nowadays in the films is just made up by editing. So if you have a sequence of behavior, something is happening, there's at least 5 cuts in between there, and most of it is kind of artificially made up. And I agree with Sean O'Brien. She has stated that the editing of films has changed a lot towards using faster cuts, and I'm a bit worried about what we are going to end up with, because it pretty much feels like, considering what other films are like during the last time, that we will end up with a techno-like cutting which just throws one image per second at us, and we we don't get any real images anymore. And some people might feel this is necessary because it's a trend nowadays in filmmaking. But it was very much a relief to me to see that there's other films made, like The Way of the Bear. I don't know whether anybody has seen that film. It was really, I think it was communicating very well, but still it had some very long shots showing the actual behavior going on one to one and not cutting. And it was very nice to see a film the other evening made by Nancy Archibald about the colobus monkeys, which was an old film. It was 25 years old, yeah, 79 or something. Sorry, lemurs, yeah, sorry, lemurs. And they had some very nice long shots and slow-paced cutting, and this is much more true to nature, to my belief, than what we get recently in many films. So, that was about what I wanted to say. And another statement I would like to make, because I come from a scientific background and I've been working in universities teaching students, I really feel that there's a responsibility of scientists to point out these things and to refer to filmmakers or to complain about to filmmakers when they get the facts wrong. There should be really much more awareness of this, that people should just write letters to filmmakers. This was wrong. You didn't do it very well. Or as well, you did it very well. I'm very pleased with your film. And I will take that back to university and try to make even biology students much more aware for their responsibility there. And I started to have the feeling maybe this Wildlife Film Festival would be a forum to actually make a course on a basis of animal behavior for filmmakers, or for script writers or whoever, because some of them really lack the basic information on that science. And if there's a science dealing with your issue, you might as well know about it. And another course could maybe deal with teaching didactic skills for script writers. That's an idea for Chuck to put forward maybe in another year. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, job. Looks like Derek split. It solved that, but there's only about 10 or 15 minutes left. I guess you don't want to get caught in the bind. Sorry that we didn't quite get him fit in. Partly it was our technology and partly our slow meals. But
what we're hoping to do, or what I would hope to do, is have more people view that level of message and learn. I mean, I learned lots from that in my own evolution, and it'll take me a while to digest and distill. But what kind of viewing or distribution is there for that?
It's repeated. It will be repeated on the nature. It is actually a new film, but it will be repeated on the nature of things, probably once in the usual series slot, and then we have summer repeats, and I'm sure it'll be on the air in Canada. The nature of things sells very widely, and I would expect that it would sell. So I really don't know, but I would think it'd have a pretty good distribution. There was a tremendous amount of immediate interest in it, actually. A lot of, there were university requests and high school requests. And what else? The salespeople said that they had a more numerous immediate response than they usually do. People wanting to have copies for whatever reasons.
through that. So it'll be as widely distributed as any of our films.
You would want that as in every, like, wildlife biology class, forestry classes, every fish and wildlife agency in the United States, anyway. I'm serious. There's a huge message there that I believe people, it would be helpful for them to be open to that.
I agree, because I do think that it just raises so much, and as a focal point for a discussion of God knows how many things you could get into from it. I think it's really valuable. Yeah, I mean, I'd love to see it in a class of that sort, where people's point of view and perspectives are being formed or reformed.
Add something there quickly. I thought it was good the way, at first, it didn't seem like it was going to be focusing on sort of environmental problems we have, because I find it can sometimes turn people off because we get so much of it nowadays, and it sort of brought you in gently into it, and thought that was quite good, because some people just get really pessimistic, and find lots of friends of mine, they'll switch off when they hear it's something about deforestation, killing whales or whatever else, whereas that sort of let you in slowly.
Well, in terms of, more people seeing it, we discovered this matinee thing as a way to get, instead of trying to get the film into the schools, in opposition to parents and school districts and principals and all that. Like this one Italian said, even the Pope gets in the way. Matinees, the kids come to the film, and we got around that. But there's a problem with kids, but I think you're thinking university courses and such, I think. That'd be great, but where are the wildlife biologists in here? We've got about 50 of them in town. They aren't here. Is this going to be in the classroom at the University of Montana or MSU or UBC? My guess is hell no, because those guys don't even know what's going on. They're concentrating on databases and stuff that's in textbooks. We've got to not only talk about this stuff like we're doing here today, but people have to write about it. We need it to be out in the written literature, and eventually in the textbooks, and then it'll be in the classroom. People have been congratulating us on the 20 years. I said, yep, we only got 40 more to go. It takes a long time to change things. What I want to see as a biologist, I want to see the kinds of things that have been going on here today, and the kinds of things that a lot of you people have been saying in your films, which isn't making it into the classroom. And it's the way the structure is. The classroom requires reading. If the books aren't there, it doesn't get taught. And if the teachers that are supposed to be teaching don't know it, how are they going to teach it? And this is the kind of problem that I see as just enormous, not only at the elementary level, but also at the university level, and that's basically what today has been all about. How can we get a broader approach to all this? How can we jar people out of their ruts, whether it's the philosophy department, the history department, art department, or the sciences? People aren't seeing the whole picture relative to television and to wildlife film. I think they're also not seeing a lot of the things that John was talking about. This is no joke. And you look at those wounds in the sides of the mountains there, and that's no joke. You did end up with an optimistic note. In the morning, I can be optimistic, too. There will always be a lot of wildlife around in great numbers. It's going to be cockroaches and rats, but there'll be lots of them. But look at the good side, I suppose. We can have white cockroaches, striped ones, pink ones, orange ones. With interbreeding, we could have big cockroaches, little cockroaches, and all sorts. So I can be optimistic, too. But we've got a long way to go, I think.
I'd just like to really applaud the CBC for this kind of work, because it doesn't condescend to the audience. And I would be willing to bet that the first thought, or that the continuing thought during the process of the making of the film was not what is the market, but what is the message. And unfortunately, they apprised me of the fact that this isn't available in the United States. The nature of things has unfortunately been dropped. Was on PBS, dropped. Was on Discovery, dropped. And I think that's a real shame. And I wonder, I'd like to ask all the folks from the CBC, what can be done about this? Why was it done, and what can be done?
Why were they dropped?
In
Well, I don't know why PBS doesn't buy us. I don't know. I have no idea. I think that we had a contract that ran out with Discovery, and it was a very good contract, and I think they just decided they didn't want to, I mean, God knows what they really had in their minds, but what it seemed was that we had come to the end of a 5-year contract with quite a lot of upfront money and no input from them. And, you know, you can see that that might not continue to be an attractive proposition for them. Whether it had something to do with the fact that we do a lot of this sort of we do a lot of controversial programming of one sort or another. We haven't done anything quite like John. Well, we did a series which John wrote 3 of, and who was the inspiration for most of it, about 17 years ago. But apart from that, the controversial stuff we do is by way of issues impinging upon conservation subjects. So, you know, we're not very commercial. It's really what the CBC is about. It's why it's there, and it's why we all feel so badly that it's being so diminished at the moment. I don't know whether you're up on public broadcasting in England and Canada these days, but it's taking a terrible beating, and the CBC is not going to really have much left by the end of this year. So that's a long answer, I guess.
Well, I'd like to remind you, but that's this very thing we're going to talk about with the next workshop. There are some real problems in marketing, especially for what I call the good guys. It's a lousy term, I suppose, but there's a lot of people who want to do stuff like that dearly. Their whole life is committed to it. They would, like somebody said the other day, they'd gladly do it for nothing if they had the opportunity to do it. The weak link, I think, in your question is the marketing, and damn it, we got to take that by the horns too. We can create the markets, we can build those markets. I think we've got to really put our mind to it. That's what the next workshop will be about. There's a whole bunch of people here are hurting because of what your very question was. Now, Nancy's been a fat cat working for Crown Corporation. Her paycheck always came until she retired the first of this month. But a lot of other people aren't in that boat. They think every penny they've got into it, and it's a beautiful, very, very good thing, and they can't sell it. They go under. They spend the rest of the decade trying to pay off the debt, and that's not the way it should be. And who's going to change it? I think we've got to change it. And for this festival, this is an extremely important topic. We want to help you any way we can, and that's what that workshop is about. Okay. The next workshop's supposed to start in about 10 minutes. I don't want to get in further trouble with Jeffrey, so let's take a little break, and we'll get that one started on time. So thank you very much.